In southeastern Oklahoma, a quiet town suddenly lost its familiar rhythm. Cool weather after days of rain created the perfect conditions for wild hogs to run rampant. Every inch of farmland was churned and destroyed. The threat had crossed the line, not only destroying gardens, but these beasts even charged at hikers and campers. Anxiety crept into every home. We knew it was time to stand up and protect our beloved land. Let the intense journey begin. Confronting the ferocity of the herd, we quickly deployed our pre-planned ambush tactics. The team moved deep into thick, dry brush, the hogs' favorite haunts. Knowing the prey's habits helped us spot the first target. Determined to prevent any attack, the shot rang out. The wild hog was down instantly. A dramatic opening that ignited determination in every team member. We continued the chase. Suddenly, a loud roar grabbed everyone's attention. A few steps further, we spotted the target hiding behind a bush. It ran frantically, tried to escape the barrel of death. Determined to restore peace to the village, I aimed and fired. Another threat eliminated. Moving westward, Nick's iPhone 17 Pro Max bust. A local reported hogs raiding nearby fields. We immediately mobilized, ready to hunt down the targets. Facing a more complex situation than expected, the team switched tactics. Nick's squad would create a distraction to draw them out, while John and I lay in ambush along the trail. Soon, a dark shadow charged. John's shot was enough to take it down. Thanks to smart strategy and calm execution, we neutralized the threat, reclaiming every inch of safety for the farmers. The recent shots threw the area into chaos. We moved to a spot with better visibility. While chatting to ease tension, I identified a target and acted. One shot, the hog dropped immediately. If you found that shot impressive, leave a like. Remember, every action was fully legal, strictly adhering to U.S. hunting regulations. As evening approached, temperatures dropped, the perfect time for the hogs to forage. When the dry grass rustled, the target bolted. John sprinted into position, raised his rifle, locked on, and squeezed the trigger. A clean shot, a victory born from reflexes, courage, and years of disciplined training. Before the rifle cooled, Nick's team drove several more aggressive hogs toward us. Determined to prevent any further fear for the locals, I raised my gun and fired. Bang! The final target of the day was down. The smell of gunpowder mingled with dust and sweat after a long day of hunting. The Nissan Titan was loaded with our hard-earned results, ready to roll back home with pride. The battle to protect these lands is far from over, and neither are we.
My uncle's entire cassava and sweet potato garden, ready for harvest, was torn apart by a wild boar raid, an entire season's hard work wasted. We knew we had to act, not just for him, but for the safety and livelihood of the whole community. At dawn, we set out, carrying a heavy mission. Could we restore order and protect the farmers' hard-earned crops? Join us and watch. The plan was laid out the night before. Split into small teams, coordinate over radios, and use hunting dogs to flush and drive the boars into predetermined zones. The pickup rolled through the morning mist, carrying seasoned hunters ready for the challenge. Everything was set. Come with us. Silently taking positions along the hillside, we felt the mountain chill and tension thick in the air. Moving against the wind was golden rule, so the boar's keen noses wouldn't pick up our scent. Suddenly, the dog's barks grew louder. Prey was cornered and could break cover any second. A massive shadow charged out. Without hesitation, my rifle locked on, and I squeezed the trigger repeatedly. When I arrived, it was lifeless. That first victory ignited the team's spirit and confidence. Wild boars are cunning, retreating deeper into dense thickets. We switched tactics, moving down a trail at the hill's base, a known escape route. Dogs were unleashed into the brush to pressure the hidden boars to break cover. A big boar was forced onto the trail. My bullet stopped it cold. At the same time, gunfire cracked from other directions. More targets down. Moving on, the dogs led me to a thick bush where a wounded boar from a teammate's shot was trapped, desperate for an escape. Seeing its last struggle, I fired. Boom! The animal fell silent. Without these loyal four-legged friends, this hunt would have been far tougher. The sun beat down hard. Another boar was driven out from the forest edge. I locked in, held my breath, and fired, but its thick hide stopped the bullet. It bolted into the opposite woods. Tracking it down again, it charged fiercely. I quickly put it down at close range. This close encounter was a harsh reminder. When cornered, these beasts are deadly. Only the skilled should dare. Changing position, I left the trail and found dense brush to ambush, exploiting their poor eyesight. I stood still, blending into the surroundings. Patience soon paid off. A boar, flushed by the dogs, ran straight into my sights. A clean shot dropped it instantly. Gunfire from my team echoed on. We heard the relief in farmers' breaths. Harvest saved. By late afternoon, gathering at the paved road to leave, the hunt seemed over. Suddenly, frantic dog barks from nearby bushes told us otherwise. Still prey lurking. There it was! The wild boar appeared. A sharp crack rang out. The bullet only spooked it into a frantic dash deeper into the forest. Guided by the smart dogs, I found its hiding spot and delivered the final shot, ending a long, tough day. hadn't been home to visit my mother in a long time, and I was hoping to find a bit of peace that I had left behind. But on the second night, the barking of dogs echoed throughout the village, the crops were destroyed, and the pigsty was in ruins. Wild boar tracks were deep in the earth, then vanished along the hillside. Everyone said we were used to it, just closed the doors and waited out, but I couldn't ignore it. The next morning, I called a few friends, grabbed some hunting gear, and set out. Not just for the boar, but for this land, a place filled with memories, family, and peace that needed to be protected. It was only 6 a.m., but our team was already at the foot of the hill, quickly spreading out according to plan. After surveying the area, I realized the wild boars here travel in herds and rarely break away from the group. I picked a vantage point lower down the hill, where I could have the best control when they appeared. Before long, the target entered my sights, and the first shot rang out, clean and accurate. The wild boar herd reacted wildly, fleeing in chaos. But no matter how fast they moved, they couldn't escape the cost. A few boars were hit and rolled down the hillside, clear evidence of a fierce but successful confrontation. We continued with our pursuit plan. After a while of deadlock, we used the GPS to quickly pin down and divide the positions for the blockade. Everything was set. We just needed the prey to fall into our trap. Sure enough, the boar herd appeared. The lead boar was taken down immediately. All that was left was the sound of gunshots and the panic of the remaining boars scrambling to escape uphill. John's team had set up a blockade at the top. A few minutes later, the mission completion signal rang through, a perfectly coordinated operation that exceeded our expectations. However, it seemed the noise had made the boars below more cautious. They quickly moved to higher ground. Realizing the situation had changed, our team didn't hesitate and rushed forward, not giving the boar any chance to escape. The familiar scent led us. Just a few seconds later, the boar emerged. The gunshot was decisive, and it collapsed, tumbling down the hillside. Our next move was executed with the help of our four-legged teammates. In every wild boar hunt, the hunting dogs are the most reliable allies, sharp-sensed, brave, and skilled. They not only track the scent, but also cleverly drive the prey into the perfect ambush position. Before long, the dogs had led the boar into our sights perfectly. As the large shadow appeared, I squeezed the trigger. A clean shot rang out, and the wild boar dropped, ending the dramatic chase. After our success, we moved to the next side of the hill, where dense bushes provided the perfect hiding place for the wild boars. I focused, moving cautiously, not wanting to miss any signs. Then, the huge dark figures emerged. The shot echoed, and the lead boar collapsed with a perfect hit. Despite staying close and trying to squeeze the trigger, the remaining boar easily escaped, leaving a deep sense of regret. The hunt couldn't stop now. If they escaped, they'd return, and the destruction would continue. We were determined to track them down to the very end, carefully following the slope of the hill with each step. This time, there was no room for error. As the distance closed, I squeezed the trigger. The precise shots hit the boar, ending the long-standing threat. Terrifying news shook the village. A local had been mauled by the alpha wild boar. Panic spread fast. Recognizing the sheer brutality and danger of this beast, we, a seasoned hunting team, were assembled without delay. With unwavering determination, we set out to track and eliminate this ferocious threat. This hunt wasn't just about survival, it was a mission. A burning desire to end the menace once and for all surged through every step we took into the forest. Silently, we moved deeper into the heart of the jungle, each footstep cushioned by layers of rotting leaves. Fresh tracks confirmed its path. Our hunting dogs were released. Minutes later, the forest erupted in chaos, barking, snapping branches, and the fierce roar of our quarry. The dogs had made contact. I flanked ahead, predicting the boar's escape route. No hesitation. I raised my rifle and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, clean, precise. The beast collapsed where it stood. First blood was drawn, but the hunt was far from over. Before we could catch our breath, a second wave of barks pierced the forest. Sharp, urgent. Another target. I spotted movement through a narrow gap between trees. No time for second chances. I fired. Another clean takedown. Swift, decisive. Our strategy was working. The coordination, the willpower, the focus. It was all coming together. James, sharp-eared and steady, picked up faint rustling. Another large boar trying to sneak through a hidden trail. He moved like a shadow, predicting its path, positioning himself in a narrow clearing between two massive trunks. Rifle ready, breath steady, he waited. The boar burst out from the thicket, and James pulled the trigger without mercy. One more threat neutralized. Every takedown was a step closer to reclaiming our forest. Suddenly, the dog's barking changed. Fierce, relentless. They had locked in. Right then, a massive wild boar charged from the undergrowth, snarling, fast as lightning. But I was ready. My aim steady, my resolve sharper than ever. One pull of the trigger, and the beast dropped instantly. No struggle, no escape. Another clean kill in a hunt that demanded perfection. Jack's signal came in. A target still lurked nearby. We pushed deeper into the dense forest, tracking the fading barks of our hounds. Then it happened. A panicked boar broke cover, fleeing the earlier skirmish. I intercepted its path and fired before it could vanish. Another down. The pressure was unrelenting, but so was our resolve. We pressed on. Suddenly, from a bush just yards ahead, another giant burst out, fast and furious. No time to think. Instinct took over. The shot rang out, and the beast collapsed mid-charge. It was moments like these that proved the hunt wasn't just physical, it was mental. Precision, reflex, dominance. The threat was falling, piece by piece. In a sparse part of the forest, our hounds, exhausted but relentless, kept the creature in check. Hearing the chaos, I arrived at the scene. No time to hesitate. I took the shot. Blinded, clean. The beast's resistance ended in an instant. Before the sun fully rose over the eastern US, the feral hogs were already moving, wreaking havoc across the fields. For professional hunters like us, this is the moment to step out, facing the raw challenge and provocation of these wild beasts. Every move is more than a hunt. It's a battle of wits against instinct, survival, and sheer force. After 3 days of tracking and observation, I had learned the habits and movement patterns of this group. Today, my team and I decided to test whether our skills and instincts had dulled. Less than a minute of waiting, the shadow finally appeared. As if expecting it, there was no surprise, only admiration for the skill and experience required to face such sudden, destructive threats. The first clear victory was quickly followed by more hogs still hiding. In open terrain like this, everything comes into view fast. From the edges of the field, herds and lone hogs began pushing forward. I couldn't stop them all alone, but no worries. They were heading straight for John's kill point. True to form, John controlled the situation flawlessly. The impending threat about to flood the field was neutralized by the skill and experience of one expert hunter. Our defensive line was deployed perfectly. From the field's edges to deep inside, my teammates lay in ambush, ready to strike any target that appeared. The battle lasted only a few hours, but the results sent a clear warning. Any intruder would think twice before crossing these fields again. On the western edges of the field, a few of us held position. Silence descended, but vigilance never wavered. Then, a sudden bark tore through the quiet. This hog had to weigh over 200 kilograms. You can imagine what it could do with those tusks if we hadn't reacted in time. Like and share to give our team motivation to bring you even more intense and high-quality hunting footage. At the decisive moment, John's refined technique and steel nerves shone. Every shot he took was not only perfectly accurate, but eliminated threats before they could even form. Even the craftiest phantoms in this field couldn't act without John's command. This wall of control was proof of his authority, composure, and lethal precision. Before the dust could settle, new targets appeared. Without hesitation, we handled each one cleanly, even the smallest shadows. Every shot was executed with authority and sacred responsibility, protecting the crops, safeguarding the local community, and maintaining peace across the fields. After a heavy downpour, wild boars swarmed into my father's sweet potato fields. In just one night, hundreds of plants were torn apart, and the soil was ripped to shreds. From that day on, hunting was no longer a choice. It became the only way to protect our land and our village's hard-earned labor. But would we make it back in one piece after a day of chasing danger? Stay tuned and find out. With a mixed terrain of dense jungle and rolling sand dunes, aerial hunting was our best strategy. The plan was simple but effective. One helicopter would flush the boars from thick brush and heavy cover. The other would execute from above as the targets ran into open ground. After a quick briefing, we lifted off into the skies. The roar of rotor blades ripped through the morning air, sending waves of power across the treetops. Our team was assigned the kill zone, an open stretch with low brush and a nearby water source, a favorite hideout for wild boars. Trapped in tight, I sat at the open side door, eyes locked on the ground below. Suddenly, a voice crackled in my headset. Target, 3 o'clock. A shadow burst from the undergrowth, charging for cover. Our pilot swept in, holding steady altitude and speed to give me the perfect firing range. I held my breath, followed the boar's wild sprint, and pulled the trigger. Boom! Direct hit. The beast collapsed. An explosive start. The team's adrenaline surged. The hunt had officially begun. A few lone boars were flushed toward a shallow waterway. Despite their size, these beasts were lightning fast. Our helicopter pursued, swooping in low and tight. 2 sharp cracks echoed across the field. 2 shots, 2 takedowns. No chance to escape. sun lit up a trail of dense footprints, leading us straight to a massive herd, likely over a dozen strong. Perfect conditions, flat terrain, wide visibility. I locked onto the rear of the herd first, tactical choice to slow their escape. I aimed, fired, and watched one drop instantly. No time to hesitate. I kept firing. Every pull of the trigger brought another beast down. Precise, ruthless, controlled. Our scout relayed coordinates of another group. We moved in. The pilot angled us close. One by one, dark figures stood out against the sand. I took them down. Clean shots, flawless timing. More dropped. The accuracy was nearly surgical. The field below was littered with motionless bodies. As evening approached, the herd fled into a wide grassland, a foraging ground full of roots and insects. The flushing team came through once more, driving the boars out into the open. Our pilot matched their sprint, flying parallel to their route. I tracked one through the scope, led the shot just right, and fired. One round, clean takedown. Game over. A few last survivors made a run for it across the open field. They were tough, persistent, and desperate. I followed their path, firing in controlled bursts. The final shots of the day rang out, and the hunt came to a close.
Some tusk. Nice shot. Oh, he kicking.